What's up YouTube? So today we are talking about this machine here, that being the Refina, or I think it's the Stock cordless Powerfloat. So the question is, should you buy one? Is it worth the money? What are the pros and the cons? Well, without a doubt, the biggest con of this machine has to be the price. I think we paid about £1,000, something like this, £1,000 in the UK for one of these, whereas you could buy the corded version, and I think it's around about £450, something like that. So it is an awful lot of money. Why would you want the cordless one? Well, for us, we do an awful lot of domestic work, a lot of domestic rendering, and currently the job we're on right now, rendering this garage, but also the house, we're on scaffolding. And currently we've used this on about 4 houses this year so far. And I have to say, if we had the leaded version, it would drive me crazy. Another downside of it is a particularly heavy Powerfloat. The corded version is quite a bit lighter, but just the fact that there isn't a cable makes a big difference for us. I think in the advert for these on the Refina website, they reckon that you can do about 50 meters squared on one battery. I'm going to be honest with you, we haven't seen that at all. Using it on sand and cement, it doesn't get anywhere near that, to be totally honest with you. It's not a big deal. The batteries charge very fast, so by the time you've drained one, you're good to go with one that's charged up. So it's not particularly a big deal. So the question really is, why would you use a Powerfloat over your standard hand polythene float? Well, the reality is, with one of these machines, you can put on a much larger area. On this house, we were able to put on the entire side of a detached house in one hit, and then float the whole lot up in the afternoon using just one Powerfloat. So it makes a big difference to how much you can put on. What's more is it compresses the render. In fact, Stock or Refina reckon that it compresses by up to 5 times the amount and reduces cracking significantly. Another big advantage of using the Powerfloat is that it does seem to get the render quite a bit flatter than if you were using it by hand. So what are the downsides, aside from the obvious being the price? Well, one of the big things as well is it's very heavy. It is quite tiring to use after a while, especially overhead. But what's more is, because it has that diamond float finish that you see in the Refina hand floats, it does tend to leave a bit of a scratched finish on the sand and cement, so that we have found that really you need to go over it with a polythene float, just a quick pass, just to take out some of those scratch marks. They do have various different heads. It comes with the standard plastic float and also a sponge. We have used the sponge as well. It's excellent for getting it a bit flatter, but we've just found that it's a little bit too aggressive bringing the aggregate out to leave that as a final finish. So we found that still using a sponge by hand just to finish it off gives a much nicer finish. One of the good pros to this is that it doesn't really matter when you use it. You can either use it when it's really wet, the render's really wet, or when it's quite dry, and it still seems to come out really well. In fact, we'll have a look at a couple of clips in a moment where you can see the Powerfloat being used on a section of wall that's a bit drier, and a section of wall where it is quite a lot wetter, too wet for you to use a hand float, and the finish that you get is still reasonably acceptable. So the long and the short of it is, should you buy one of these? Well, if you're in our position where you're a professional plasterer, you're rendering a fair amount. It's certainly in the UK, we render from April through to October, and we expect to do somewhere between 5 or 10 houses in between our plastering throughout the summer. So for us, it's well worth the money. It was worth £1,000. It's enabled us to put much larger areas on, to complete the work in a quicker time, but also to a better standard. So can we recommend buying one of these? Yes, we can. If you can afford the extra £500 or so as not to have the corded version, we think it's well worth it. Not to have cables dangling around when you're working on a scaffold makes a big difference for us, and we certainly would buy this again if for whatever reason it broke or was stolen. So thumbs up to Ivanstock and Refina. It's an excellent tool and we thoroughly recommend you buying one. Thanks so much for watching the video. We hope you found it helpful and possibly helps you make up your mind as to whether you should consider investing in one of these. Thanks for watching. Consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one.